What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the FansToys Marauder with the DX9 Atilla, both versions of a Masterpiece Scale Menasor. So these came out several years apart. This is from beginning of 2021, and this guy we just got in August of 2025. So about 4.5 years between them. And I've had this guy for a very long time as my Menasor. And in fact, I'll show you some upgrade parts that I bought for him later. But today we're just going to look at these two guys. We're not going to bring in the X-Trans butts. I don't have it, and I wasn't about to borrow it for this comparison just because it's a lot to ask somebody to ship it, and I just didn't want to deal with all that. So we'll just look at these guys. As I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible, but of course there's subjectivity involved when you're judging things like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these comparisons to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, including getting both of them if that's preferred. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is in my last comparison, somebody said, why don't you weight category XYZ, just pick one. And people say this all the time, so I want to address this. I don't weight any of the categories. I leave it up to you to decide what's most important to you, whether that's the cost or the articulation or the engineering or the transformation or whatever, because that's really a personal preference, right? What do you prefer? Most of this review is subjective. There are some things that are more objective, like articulation and cost, but a lot of it is my opinion. So I just like to show you what the two figures look like, what they can do, and then you decide as a consumer which one you prefer and what is most important to you as a collector. With that being said, let's get started. We'll start off with the accessories. All right, here are all the accessories they come with, and I did want to show you, I had quite a few aftermarket upgrades on the DX9 just to demonstrate that I was committed to the set. But I have the driver for drag strip from, I think that's Jimmy H Customs. I have a Decepticon logo that plugs into the chest. Forgot where I got this one from, somewhere on eBay. And then I got the Sean Misselbrook leg upgrades, which allow you to put the vehicles on the front. So all of these are not part of the figure. I just wanted to show them because, man, there was a lot of aftermarket things for this figure. But here's what it comes with in the box. They both come with a sword. And the FansToys one is chromed, but both are pretty good looking. They both come with a gun. The DX9 one, this is the G2 version, so it's not in the G1 colors. I gave the G1 one to Dr. Diecast because he wanted it, but it is the same mold, just colored differently. It does transform into a bug, but they both have a gun. Now, because it transforms into the bug, I'm going to give them an extra point when we get to gimmicks. Just because this is a gimmick, the fact that it transforms. But they both come with a gun. And then kind of here's what we're left with. The FansToys, you get the parts. You get the chest piece and the crotch plate for Toy Deco mode. You get the shoulder pauldrons for Toy Deco mode. And then you get 2 alternate faces for the Toy Deco head. And 3 alternate faces for the Toon Deco head. So we're going to give accessories over to FansToys easily. All right, next we'll take a look at the gimmicks. And as I already mentioned, the DX9 does have the transforming gun, so that'll give them 1. They both have the light up head feature. I had forgotten this guy had a light up head feature. By the way, the face on this guy has been painted by Sean Diesel. It's got metallic red eyes and a gray face. It was originally a silver face, so it looks a lot better painted. So just keep that in mind as we go through the review. But they both have the light up eyes. But then FansToys has the Toy Deco mode where you can swap the chest and the crotch piece and the shoulder pauldrons. But the fact that they've got this leg swapping gimmick is a big deal to me. That really adds a lot because you can use that in either mode, in the Toy Deco mode or the Toon mode. And for me personally, it's preferred to have the legs on the front. I put it this way just because it's Toon accurate, and we're going to look at that. But I'm going to give gimmicks to FansToys. I think they just really nailed it, especially with this leg piece. And by the way, forgot a couple things in the review for this guy, so I just wanted to mention it now. One, he does have heel spurs that fold out from the feet. You don't need them because it's pretty stable without it, but I wanted to mention that. And the other thing is, when you have it in toy deco mode, you have it rotated to the front, there are panels here on the side. And I thought I had shown it, but I guess I must have missed it, that you want to fold these panels out around the side of the car on both of these. It doesn't really do anything other than for aesthetics. You know, it doesn't really help hold it or anything, but it does change the look a little bit. But either way, I'm going to give Gimmicks over to FansToys. All right, next we'll take a look at the cartoon accuracy and sculpt. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. And both of these guys did a really good job. I mean, they both nail the cartoon look, even down to the details on the chest. You know, they both have it. FansToys went a little bit above and beyond with some of the sculpted details on the legs and on the shins. I like that. I think it looks good. But cartoon accuracy wise, I think they both nail those cues. They both have the head sculpt pretty well down, although they're very different. The arms, I think they both nail the look of Menasor from the cartoon. Now, getting to the sculpt, I think FansToys has an edge here because they really were able to give him this more adult, slender look. And what I mean by that is, if you look at DX9's arms, you have this pretty thick gray piece on the inside, and then the shins, you have these really wide shins. And I understand why they did it. You know, they kind of needed space for the car on the back, but it does end up looking a little bulky right here and right here. Whereas FansToys, they figured out a way, because they painted this arm piece, it looks like part of the car. And then the gray piece is pretty thin on the inside. And same for the legs. The legs are slender, just fits the car. Behind it, you can kind of see the car poking through, which I really like. You can see the tires kind of poking through. So because of that, I think the sculpt on the FansToys just gets a little bit more adult look to it, whereas this looks a little more chunky and, you know, not as detailed on the front. All right, next we'll talk about the paint on these two, and this one's kind of a no-brainer. FansToys always does well in this area, and this is no exception. It's pretty much 100% painted, other than the translucent pieces on the chest, and that might be it. Maybe the tires. Whereas on the DX9, you do have accents. You know, these black accents here, some silver behind these translucent pieces. And I do like the translucent. Those do look good. Some black accents here. Some of the cars are painted. Some of them have unpainted surfaces. So it's kind of a mix, but because it's not fully painted like FansToys, I'm going to give it to FansToys. They just nail it with the paint. Next, we'll talk about the build quality on these two. And this guy's pretty solid in combined mode, and so is this guy. Sturdiness wise, I do think the FansToys is a little bit better. One of the things that was an issue with this guy was the cars staying attached. You can already see this one's already falling off. It's always been kind of a weak attachment point. And it's really both of these. Both of these tend to like come off on the back. As far as Motormaster, that's fine. And as far as drag strip and dead end, those seem to be not an issue. So those stay together well. Overall, the combiner's fairly well built. There's a little bit of issues here in the thighs with that spring-loaded gimmick to pop open the details in the thighs, which is nice. I do like that painted detail here in the thighs. But generally speaking, solid, with the exception to those cars. On the FansToys, this is one of the most solid combiners ever built. The build quality in this is really top-notch, and these cars aren't going anywhere. And my buddy Sam Scott Roberts mentioned his car, his spoiler, sometimes falls off in certain conditions. I haven't had that issue except when I'm fully articulating the figure and trying to get an extreme pose out of it. Occasionally this will come loose. But for the most part, I mean, everything is solid on here. Nothing is moving. And it just looks really good. But it's very, very solid. So I'm going to give build quality over to FansToys. I think this one, they really figured out how to get the combiner to work without any issues. All right, now we'll talk about the articulation on these two. In order to do that, we'll articulate each one individually. And I may skip some of the articulation just for my own benefit, so I'm not weary after doing this. But starting with the FansToys, the head is on a swivel. It actually has a hinge in the neck that gets you all the way back to there. There's a forward hinge too that gets you all the way down. It does break the sculpt eventually. The head itself has a little hinge forward backward. No side to side, but it does rotate around. We do have this head swap gimmick, which I forgot to mention when we were talking about gimmicks, but there is a head swap gimmick to get the toy head. Coming to the shoulders, you have a ratchet joint. Gets you all the way around. And I have this piece out just to cover that panel. You have a single jointed ratcheted elbow, gets you 90 degrees. For the hands, you have a rotation at the wrist on a ratchet, in and out movement on the wrist, individually articulated fingers, some of the best hands ever in a combiner. 1, 2, 3 pins, a splay joint, lets you get it out, and a rotation down at the finger. It's a very deep rotation at the finger. And then the thumb itself is on a hinge at the lower joint and a rotation. The thumb itself is on a rotation ball joint, and then 2 pins. So arguably some of the best combiner hands ever in a third party. Coming to the waist, you do have a waist rotation, although it only goes up to there. It's good enough for posing, but it would be nice if it went a little bit more than that, just due to the transformation. That's the limit. There is an ab crunch. Gets you 3 clicks down. Works pretty well. For the legs, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this. Well, we might as well. You have hip skirts on the front, back, and sides. Legs will kick up to there. This is the part that makes me weary. Back to here, hindered a little bit by the sculpt, and then out to the side on a ratchet. It does hold the leg up. All right. For the thigh, you have a thigh rotation, 90-degree bend at the knee, nice solid leg joints and combiner joints for the cars. You have ankle tilt, gets you down to there. Oops, you can't see that. Gets you down to there. No forward and backward on that. All right, let's get over to DX9 now. Move this guy out of the way. And it is very similar in the articulation, but some limitations. Hands on a rotating swivel goes up to there, down to there. They did work in a little joint to get you more down. I do appreciate that. You get pretty much all you need out of that. And a rotation around. The ears do move just because of the transformation. You can move the ears up and down. For the shoulders, rotate around on a ratchet. Goes all the way around. Out to this side on a friction joint, which doesn't really hold, but you do have a ratchet joint in there too. And the ratchet gets you up to there. Same limitation as the FansToys, which I don't know if I showed it, but the FansToys also is limited due to the pauldrons, right? You get you up to there. Sorry about missing that. So if you use the ratchet joint, it works. You have a double jointed elbow. It's a weird way they did it. It's a double gear. So as you bend the gear, it rotates the gear on the top and the bottom. So you get fixed positions. You get 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can fully bend the elbow to get the full movement there. So they're going to get credit for a double jointed elbow. Rotation at the wrist. No in and out movement at the wrist. You do have articulated fingers at 2 pins and then a base ball pin. Thumb is on a ball joint and 2 pins. It doesn't have the extra in and out movement, and it also doesn't have that inner thumb joint here, but pretty close on the fingers themselves. All right, coming down to the waist, we do have a waist rotation on a ratchet. Pretty strong ratchet. No ab crunch on this guy. Hip skirt is a single hip skirt. I don't love that. And he is starting to come apart a little bit just because of the way he's designed. Sometimes this leg collapses on you. You just got to get this back in here. But I just don't love the fact that they did one hip skirt for the front. Kind of looks ugly, but you can get the legs rotated up to here. You can see the car is definitely coming off. Back to here, hindered by the back hip skirt. Out to the side on a ratchet. It does hold. And this is one of the issues with this figure is there's a double ratchet there, so you got to keep the upper ratchet out, but keep the inner ratchet bent. And sometimes it gets squirrely as you're messing with it. For the knees, we have a 90-degree bend at the knee. The car does collide with the back of the thigh, so you can't get past 90 unless you get the car out of the way. You have a rotation of the thigh on a ratchet. Not sure you need a ratchet there, but there is a ratchet. Yeah, and this thing keeps coming apart, so you really have to get this wedged in there. And then for the feet, you have ankle tilt out to there on a ratchet, and you have a rotation at the foot, which actually becomes an irritation because sometimes it rotates when you don't want it to. All right, sorry about the cutaway. I had to catch my breath. But when it comes to articulation, they're pretty close. FansToys advantages are the head. They've got a little more articulation, especially at the neck area. There's really no neck articulation on this one. This one does. And then it's got a little bit better hands with the dice roll and just the fingers in general, the thumb especially. The DX9, though, does have double jointed elbows. Now, they're a little limited because there's only 4 spots you can get it to. But the FansToys also is on a ratchet that gets a couple spots. So they have better elbows, but these guys have a better head and hands. So I'm going to give it to FansToys just by a hair. It's really close, but I'll give them articulation. All right, now I'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. When it comes to transformation, I think DX9 did a really good job on this. I've actually transformed this very recently because I was transforming the G2 version back into vehicle mode. And it's very straightforward, especially the trailer. Now they have one large trailer on this guy for Motormaster, whereas this one has 2 trailers. So it's got Motormaster's original trailer, and then it's got the new trailer for all these parts. I haven't even done the review for that yet, which I'm planning to do. But because of that, the transformation is very complex, not fun in my opinion, for the overall trailer, whereas this guy really is all one built-in thing. All of the vehicles, including Motormaster, are simple and fun and straightforward. So I'm going to give transformation over DX9. As far as engineering, this is a tough one, but I gotta give it to FansToys. The way they were able to incorporate both modes in here for Toy Deco and Toon Deco, the engineering, just specifically on the legs, if they left everything out, just forgetting about the extra parts, just the idea of building in engineering to allow you to swap the legs, to me, is a feat in and of itself. So I'm going to give engineering to FansToys, but we'll give transformation to DX9. All right, the next category is the alt modes. I have not done a combiner comparison in a while, so I can't remember what I did when I did alt modes, but we have looked at the alt modes on both of these. We're not going to take them all apart and show them all, but I do think the DX9 alt modes were really good. Some of the best in the business. They all look really nice. They're painted well. They're detailed nicely. They've got rubber tires. They're really, really good. As far as the FansToys, they have that premium look. You know, metallic paint, rubber tires, chrome wheels. It does go a step above But when it comes to the alt mode overall, I think the DX9 is still pretty good. So I'm going to give them a tie on the alt modes. Both of them are really well done. They do different things differently, better. Now we are going to do a comparison on these two on the dead end. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I did look at them and I didn't see an advantage between them. So because of that, I'm going to give them a tie on alt mode. Right now let's talk about the cost on these two. And this one is pretty much a no-brainer. The FansToys is going to be way more expensive, but I do want to kind of work it out just in numbers. So the drag strip, spoiler, and Magnum, roughly $150. Last time I looked on the Aegis 3 and Up website, that's about what this guy was running. So that gets us to $450 just for those guys. Then the Motormaster was $180 originally. I think it's now $200. But we'll give them the credit for that, so that's another $5 or $6. And then we've got dead end with the combiner parts. That was $400. So you're talking roughly $1,100, maybe $1,200, depending when you bought them, in that range. DX9, each of these limbs are about $100, $90 around there. So that gets you to $400. And then the Motormaster around $250, depending again when you bought it. So still not even going to come close. This is going to be around $650. They're going to be $1,200, roughly double the price. So we're going to give cost over to DX9. And I know there are people who are going to watch this and say the cost is the most important thing. They would never pay more than double. Then you factor up the cost, but DX9 is going to get 1 point for cost. Right, and the final factor in this comparison is the members' choice category. I would ask my members which one they prefer, just based on their own personal preferences and no other factors. And FansToys is going to win the members' choice category. No surprise there. It really does look beautiful. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score, and FansToys is going to take this one. And I don't think anyone out there is surprised by that. This is a really good combiner. I argued one of the best combiners ever made to date. But DX9 still holds their own. It's still a good version of Menasor. You know, if I wasn't in the reviewing game, you know, I might even stick with this and just keep this as my Menasor. But I think this guy, you know, really held up over time. And my apologies for the inaccurate gun here. I just don't have the other one. But even that was just a cool thing, a cool nod. Back when third party was doing things like that, right? You know, unique kind of takes on a character. This one was a good mix of third-party uniqueness plus getting the G1 cartoon captured. And it still has that feel today. So that's it for this comparison. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.